we need to make sure that we cover various aspects of this mentorship relationship. And we can start with, what's the right time to look for a mentor? Daisy, when did you start looking for a mentor?
It's a great question. So I think in fellowship, we were in the last session with Neo about academia. So if you're pursuing that clinical research track, which is the track that sort of I pursued as part of the fellowship, we were really encouraged to start looking for a mentor in the probably mid first year, just for that research, that research mentor time. I think for our clinical fellows, I think they were very much encouraged to look for a mentor at towards the end of the first year. I think those are generally, how we did it. Yep.
Very interesting. So let me, two things that come up from what you said. First is, when's the right time to look? And again, it depends on the situation, but my rule of thumb is that the earlier, the better. And what I tell my fellows, that as soon as you figured out where your clinics are and where the restrooms are, your next item on the agenda is to figure out who is around you and who could be a mentor. So basically, it's one of your first tasks. Fellowship is so short, especially for those of you doing a 2-year fellowship. It goes by before you realize. And to make the most out of it, you want to identify people who you could work with, who can guide you, who can give you sort of tips along the way from day 1 or day 2 of your arrival to where you are. So the second point that you made is a little bit of a differentiation, whether you are on the clinical track or research track, or sort of what's your main focus in the fellowship. And I want to make clear one thing. Everybody benefits from a mentor. Not everybody needs a mentor, but everybody benefits from a mentor. And my suggestion is you should all look for one, or at least one, if not more, because that really, especially if it's done right and you manage that relationship well, it really helps you propel your career in the right direction at a much faster pace. And it really benefits you tremendously in the long run. So whether you think that, I'm going to go in private practice, I don't need a mentor, let me tell you, you need a mentor, no matter which field you're going into. There are always questions about career choices, about cases, about the business aspect, about contracts, about reaching out to other peers in the field that you want to run by somebody that you're trusting, somebody that has your best intentions sort of in mind, and somebody that knows you, because obviously all of these questions that you have about your career, they're very specific to you most of the case. So if somebody knows you well, knows what your circumstances are, will be best suited to answer those questions in an informed way. So no matter what your career path is, you should look for a mentor. Of course, historically speaking, it's the research people that were looking for mentors, and those mentorship relationships tend to be organized in a particular way. But that doesn't mean that other people do not benefit from a mentorship relationship. So I highly encourage you to look for a mentor if you don't already have one, irrespective of what your career goals are, and do so earlier rather than later. So for those of you who answered A here, and we are now in June, I assume you're probably first year in June. You got to get on the horse and find a mentor. The other point is, it's a bit daunting. How do you find the mentor? It's almost like a marriage, right? Like you're finding the one that's going to mentor you well. It's not like that. It is an important choice, but you don't have to think about it as a terminal choice or even in the sense that you don't just want to find necessarily one mentor. If you find that there are 2, 3, 4 people that you connect with very well, that understand what you're doing, understand your career choices, and you feel comfortable talking to you. I say a mentorship team is probably just as beneficial in certain situations than just having one person that you identify. Use this time during your fellowship. Your doors are open, and use this time to go meet people. You know, if you have that Nobel laureate at your university, you know, their doors, it's open. You can send them an email and say, hey, I'm a first-year endocrine fellow. I want to know more about, I'm looking for a mentor. I would like to know more about your project. I mean, what greater way for you to introduce yourself to somebody that's really renowned in the field. And you know, you never know. You get to know about their work, you get to learn about their life experience, and then you never know, maybe that becomes a relationship. If not, at least you got to introduce yourself, you got to meet them, and you got to have a conversation with somebody really important in the field. So use this opportunity. Your doors are open. Call them up, email them, set up appointments, and don't be shy. Go meet people. Go meet a lot of people. Don't just settle on your first attending that's kind to you and nice to you and say, this is it, you're going to be my mentor. No, go explore and meet a lot of people and then make a decision. And I see there's a question there.
Yeah. Yes. So I can read this out loud. So there's a question from Sarah Khan, actually one of my co-fellows here. So, sort of given the choice between a mentor who may be less experienced, but who you may have a good relationship with, versus someone who's probably more senior, more experienced, but who may be busier and less interested or less available. What's your take on that?
Very good thoughts. And there's no right answer, right? It's all about putting it all together and seeing what would benefit you most in the long run. And it truly depends on your situation. You definitely want a mentor. You can only benefit from a mentor to the degree that they put some effort into it. If you have a mentor that has no time for you, has no interest, then their relationship's not gonna go anywhere, no matter how experienced they are. So that's the first thing. That's a no-go. If your mentor has no time for you and no interest, that's not a good mentor for you. But short of that, you really want to have that conversation with your mentor and also ask questions from your mentor and people around them. Now, what's their mentoring style? How many people have they mentored? What have those relationships looked like? What are the expectations on both ends? What does the mentor want from you? Because it has to be a mutually beneficial relationship always for it to be successful. What do they expect from you? What do you expect from them? What time commitment they have for you, and vice versa. How much time will you commit to that relationship? So you need to ask all these questions, how experienced they are. With some small exceptions, it's probably not that critical of a weighing factor for your decision. Somebody less experienced could be really good and very invested, and vice versa. So you really want to also think of your situation. Are you doing research in this very specialized area that only this one person is an expert in? Maybe if that's the case, no matter what the other problems are with that mentor, you want that person on your mentoring team. But if really it's about a clinical mentorship or it's not that really small niche of an area that you're looking to be mentored in, then you want to consider other attributes besides the experience in that particular area to look for in your mentor. And really, how invested they are in your professional development is one of the biggest criteria for your selection. But also, don't forget, this mentoring, it's not always a one-to-one. You can have a one-to-many relationship here. And think about your situation and what is available for you and what's best in your situation. if you are looking to develop, let's say, into clinical trials, and maybe there's nobody at your university that does clinical trials in adrenals, which is what your interest is. Maybe you find a very experienced clinician in adrenal diseases that can mentor you. Maybe you also find another mentor that's a clinical trialist in diabetes, knows nothing about adrenal, but has that clinical trial aspect that can cover for you. Maybe you find even another person that can be your career mentor overall, not necessarily a content mentor, but a career mentor that can guide you when it comes to career decisions and so forth. So you see what I'm getting, like you really keep your options open and think, what do you need? What pieces do you need to get you where you want to be in life?
Right. Absolutely. Kind of, I think the point that you touched on, which I absolutely agree with it and took me a little while to realize is like a mentor doesn't have to be one single person who fulfills everything you need, but they are fulfilled by different people who serve maybe very specific roles. Right. And then, great. And so, and then the next question sort of, once you've picked a mentor, what are some of the things that you do as a mentee to sort of optimize that relationship and really take advantage?
I think that communication is absolutely key and setting expectations up front. So once you've narrowed down and you kind of know who you want to pick as your mentor, you want to set up that follow-up meeting and make sure that they also want to be your mentor, and then discuss the terms of this relationship. How often do you want to meet? Like I said, what are the deliverables on both sides? What are the expectations? Does your mentor, for example, want a weekly email with the update of what you've done? Or does your mentor want a monthly PowerPoint presentation in front of the group with updates about your research? Or maybe your mentor wants ad hoc meetings and so forth. So it really depends. There's no right and wrong. It depends on your situation. But you want to be very clear of the expectations, because the worst thing is for you guys to be in misstep and then nobody's happy in that relationship. If you think that your mentor should be calling you weekly to tell you what to do, and your mentor thinks that you should be initiating every meeting, and obviously everybody's going to be unhappy in this relationship. So set the terms of your relationship up front. You want to do that in a live meeting and then follow up in writing with an email. Thank you for meeting with me. This is how I understand that you want to have this relationship formalized. And thank you for putting the effort into being my mentor. And also, if you have multiple mentors, I think it's very beneficial for your mentor to know that. I want you to know that I have a mentorship team. These are the other people that will be helping with my career. And I propose that periodically, maybe once a year, every 6 months, depending on your situation, maybe we all meet to provide feedback and let me know where I am in my career path.
Great. No, those are really good tips, particularly sort of navigating, different mentors all together. And then, and because
Daisy, how often do you meet with your mentor?
So I sort of, I'm in that role where I have a couple of different mentors. I have two probably main primary mentors where I meet. One of them I meet weekly. One of them I meet every other week. And then the one thing I wanted to mention, particularly to Sarah Khan's question, is there's also the concept that I learned was this concept of a sponsor, like someone who may not be a hands-on mentor, but I have,
recording stopped.
I have, some senior person who may not have time to meet with me every week, but who gives me like big opportunities and who's still invested. So I think that's something that was completely brand new to me, in fellowship, to sort of how to leverage that relationship. That's a little bit different from having these weekly meetings, because that person I don't meet, every week or every 2 weeks, but more periodically.
That's right. So, these mentor versus sponsor sort of differences are subtle but very important. Mentor is the one that you meet with regularly, that sort of is invested in your career. You're working for them in a sense that it's a mutual relationship, and they get something out of it, you get something out of it, and so forth. Sponsor is somebody usually at a much different level, may or may not be directly in your line of work, but usually it's somebody that's much higher up and sort of looks out, watches out for you for opportunities. So, if there's a new position somewhere, they might say, hey, let me have Daisy look at it. Or, if there's a new project that's being started and they're like, oh yeah, I know Daisy might have an interest in it. So it's somebody that connects you, somebody that keeps you in the back of their mind when opportunities arise and let you know about them. Also somebody that can provide PR on your behalf, right? So when they're in meetings at these higher levels and so forth, they can mention your name in the right environment and just make sure that people know about you, about your work, about what, so then other people can reach out to you should there be an opportunity that you would benefit from. So those are generally sponsors, but that relationship needs to be cultivated, not to the same intensity, but also need to be cultivated over time, because otherwise they forget about you and move on to somebody else that cultivates that relationship.
Absolutely. And I think learning the difference, because that's the expectation thing as well, sort of, you do have somebody who's really senior, who you really look up to, but may not have the time to be your mentor. That may be a good relationship to cultivate with them. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to tell people to put in questions.
I saw some people that picked E, and I believe E was the one that said, it's not working out. What do I do? I think that's an important discussion to have. Obviously, it's a delicate situation, and every one is going to be slightly different and would have a different solution. But I think it starts with that setting those expectations up front are so important. That's number one, to prevent a fallout. Number two is manage the relationship. You want to be maintaining that communication, having that frequent communication, provide feedback, meet your deadlines, do your part of the deal to make sure that this relationship is maintained. Next level is, be honest. If something's not right, just talk to your mentor. Part of those meetings that you're having, say, I'm really grateful for A, B, and C, but I need more help with E, F, and G. How can we do that? What are your thoughts on this? I struggle with these things. Can you help me? Be honest with what is it that is not working in this relationship. Don't be confrontational, demanding, but say, hey, this part I'm not comfortable with. Let's find a solution for my problems and help me out here. So communication is really, really key for solving such problems. I would say it's the last resort to terminate a relationship. It's never, think about, you don't want to burn bridges. You never know when you're gonna come across these people professionally, personally, and so forth. You really don't want to burn bridges if you can at all help it. So you might want to discuss, can I bring in another person in my mentorship team that perhaps, can provide what your main mentor is not providing? That would be one solution. I think the last choice would be, this is not working. Let me relieve you from your mentoring duties and move on to somebody else. I'd say that's a rare approach. It can be done, but I would say navigate that with a lot of tact and skill, because you do not want to leave any sour grapes behind you. Adding another mentor would probably be your best option. and do that in a way that's non-threatening to everybody. What do you think, Daisy?
I completely agree. I think this is always a tricky situation, right? Because I think that, if your mentor is really good and really have your best interests at heart, if they feel they're not offering you, or they're not, for example, like their expertise is, limited in terms of what you want to do, they would themselves say, hey, go talk to this, they would then naturally shift you or introduce you to the people they think would really benefit you. So I think it's a tricky situation if, it's not working out for a reason. And I think some of it, sometimes it can just be intimidating, right? Like, especially if, like in terms of like, what are your thoughts about like follow up, like a mentor that kind of, it's not, do anything negative, but just sort of maybe neglectful. Like, how do you think is one way to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, for those type of mentors, I think having scheduled meetings would be very helpful. Like, I want to meet with you weekly. What's a good day? Let's meet every Friday from 1 to 2. And make sure you're prepared for your meetings. Come with an agenda. This is what I want to talk to you about. This is what I need help with. And this is what the plan is between now and next week. So a neglectful mentor can be managed that way if you have a good agenda and a meeting scheduled with that mentor.
That's great advice. Absolutely. If people have any other questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. We have under 2 minutes left, so I want to make sure that we answer people's questions. I had another question. Just what are your thoughts about like looking for mentors that are maybe outside of your division or outside of your institution, right? That you may not have had like an organic, introduction with them. How do you go about doing that, and what are your thoughts?
Like I said earlier, when you're a fellow, all doors are open. You can reach out to this famous guy at another institution and email them and say, hey, I will have mentor X here at my university, but my project's really about something else, and I could really use your mentorship. Do you think we could talk? Reach out to them. They love people who have a plan, who have good questions, who want to meet, who are proactive. I don't think anybody's going to say no. And if they say no, then they're not the right mentor for you, obviously. But don't be shy and do reach out to people.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Lingvay.